What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today, BTC USD. Hit that like button, subscribe, and thank you all for being here. It is the 4th day of April. Here we are sitting at about 67.2K with roughly 9.5 hours left in the day. Again, hit that like button. Thank you all. Let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about the price action here. So first and foremost, I do want to address a couple things actually that might be developing, and it's just a whole concoction of thoughts that come along with this, but. First and foremost, this is a pretty strong reversal signal, right? Whenever you get a solid body up, and then you get a doji candle like this, and then you get a solid body down, which that wasn't really that solid, but still, it's typically a reversal signal, and that's exactly what we had here. We also had that same thing at the top, solid body up, doji candle here, solid body down. That's pretty common to be a reversal signal, but here you have a doji candle at the bottom with a solid body down. We might be reversing up, and in which case we probably pump with some force. Now, here's the contention to that, or not the contention. Here's the conniption to that. If we do move up, we closed here on Friday or on Thursday because Friday was the stock market was closed for Good Friday. If we do move up, we likely will have a gap in the CME futures, and that typically those gaps do get filled. That would incline Bitcoin to move down and fill that gap. So if we move up, if we get this little reversal on the reversal, we'll likely reverse back down. We'll get reversal city over here. Really screwy but volatile price action. Really good for trading. I want to look at the short-term stuff and see if we should anticipate a move that's back up to about 68K or higher, or are we still on a path that will take us lower than this low down to these low areas here and potentially even lower than that. Now, when you hear me say this, before we get too much further, when I say going lower than these lows or even lower than this low, that doesn't mean I'm expecting us to break out of this range. I still think that we'll be in this range consolidating. This range right now is like this, but who knows, man. At the end of this drop, we could be looking at it more as like a horizontal range instead of a tilted upwards range, right? Like it could be, and I drew this a little funky, but let me see, hold on. Delete this. By the end of it, we could be looking at it more as like a box if we were to drop down here, right? Because it's that can happen. So we can move lower without breaking out, but a lot of people might assume we're breaking out. And the thing is, we're going to look for volume to validate that. If we get a little bit of volume, that's not really enough to validate it. If we get some more volume than what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, I would think that we are breaking out, and I'm open to changing my opinion. But my opinion stands today the same as it has throughout this whole range, is that we are going to move sideways until May or June. And I believe June to be the month that will break us out to the downside. If not July. July might break us out to the downside. I am with the idea that we break out of this to the downside. I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Though to be fair, 2 months is kind of soon, isn't it? Anyways, let's get into it, my friends. 1 hour time frame here. Well, tell you what, price action looks bullish. Typically, higher lows with a flat top, that's typically bullish. The volume's decreasing. We're at a point where we're about to break out. Yeah, I bet we move up, guys. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but it's not a bad place to go long. And then you can have a tight stop loss right there. I mean, like, let's just see for the degens out there. That's like a 0.5%. You don't want to lose your ass over 0.5%. So, what, like, you do, if you did 5x, that would be 2.5% loss, right? That's a pretty tight stop loss. Whereas if this thing were to move up to where I think it would, just based off of this, you could, 5x would turn into like a 10% gain, 2.5% loss on like a potential 10%, maybe a 5% gain. I know those are small gains, but you take enough small gains, it turns into big gains. That's the whole idea. You don't need to hit the big swings, though we do look for those sometimes. Looking at this here on the 1 hour, it definitely looks bullish. 1 hour RSI, bullishly configured. It's not necessarily bullish. I mean, you're in the more bullish area of control here, but once we get overbought, then we're bullish. Until then, we're just doing the same old neutral BS going between the overbought and oversold zone. But this does look a little bit more meticulous. Stochastics look bullish, and the MACD is crossed above the zero. That's bullish too. Here's a little point of contention. We've been green for a very long time. Now, we can stay green. We could stay green for twice as long, 3 times as long. It doesn't have to end now just because we've been green on the histogram for a while. We can stay green. I just don't see too many times here where we stay green this consistently. Maybe here. We still had a couple false crosses to the downside. You know, that was a pretty long stint. It's like not quite twice as long as this, but it just typically we don't see things this green for this long. So that does have me a little bit curious. Maybe what we do is we find some resistance here, we come back down, we find support, we cross it red, and then we move up later. You know what I mean? So we could be moving down. We could be moving back down below 67K. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but if I was trying to go long, I would either probably wait for a breakout, a formal breakout, or I'd wait for that pullback below 67K. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor. 67.17K. Looking at this on the 4-hour time frame. The 4-hour is neutral, but bearish on the RSI. Bearish because most of the time that you've got is spent below the 50. Bearish because you're not getting overbought, but you are getting oversold. Neutral because, well, you're right in the heart of the overall range here. So neutral but bearish. Stochastics are bullish right now, but in a bearish environment, being bullish is more of like a reset, and that could allow you to drop lower. And then the 4-hour MACD is still bearish as well. There are some bullish things going on here, but I think I stand by exactly what I was saying over the last few days. Until we get a close, 2 4-hour closes above 68.2K, I think it's more than reasonable to expect lower prices. So we could break out of this. We could even wick above 68.2K, but if we're closing 4-hour periods below, we're still going to come down. This will still be a lower high, at which we still do go below this low. It depends on how we behave up here. And calling for a breakout above the golden ratio on the first attempt, that's already statistically less likely. With the 4-hour parameters that we've been given on these indicators, I'm not optimistic that we get above this high. I'm still thinking, based on the 1-hour time frame, that we do see some movement up, but that might not happen. Maybe we just move down. The 4-hour is definitely giving me the implication that we move down below these lows. It's the weekend. Tomorrow's Sunday. We probably don't make any significant moves up or down until the weekend's over. If we make a significant move up today or before the weekend's over, or a significant move down before the weekend's over, when the week opens up on Monday, we'll likely reverse whatever direction we go. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think we'll probably just still be here, more or less. And then maybe late Sunday, if not Monday, we'll get a pump. But then again, I don't think that pump's going to take us above this high. I'm wrong if we close 2 4-hour time frames above $68.2 thousand daily time frame, and I'm wrong to the upside. That would imply then that we're moving up, not moving below this low. The daily RSI, very neutral as well. Hints of bearishness, but pretty neutral. I would definitely say you're postured in a bearish fashion here. That doesn't mean that you're seeing death and destruction, right? If we were expecting this to go to the oversold zone, that is typically what you see. You typically get oversold with the RSI in breakout environments. So that would imply that, yes, we are breaking out to the downside. But we look at this. You've got the lower lows here, the lower highs here. It's giving me this impression that you're going to bounce off the oversold zone, or around there at least. You can get a little bit in there, but if you do something like this, we're breaking out. I don't think that we're going to do something like that. I think that we're going to hit the maturity of this kind of consolidation here in the RSI, and that will likely give us a bounce from this area. So still lower to go, probably not much, and then we bounce because we are getting overall neutral vibes. I'm not really super bearish here. A little bit bearish for sure. But anyways, weekly time frame. Oh, no. We missed the stochastics. Stochastics do look bearish here. It makes sense that we'd go down. The MACD looks bearish here. If we go lower, we get lower lows, but we get higher lows in the histogram here. That will provide bullish divergence. We're at a point where we reject the zero, but it's not a harsh rejection, and boom, we can send it through. That's actually a very common setup. I still believe in April. I still believe that by the end of April, we will see prices that are back above 70K. I still believe that. I don't know if at this point I'm believing that we'll get above this price in April. Maybe it's like a slight higher high, as we've been doing. But I think that the high of this range, for what it's worth, I think that'll come in either May or June. It'll come in one of those months, maybe both of those months. And then we'll likely sell off. We'll get to that as we get closer to May. Weekly time frame. We close this week green. We got 1 day and 10 hours left. If we close this week green, we have bullish divergence on the... No bullish divergence, I'm sorry. Still a bullish thing, though. Bouncing off the oversold zone. Very bullish thing. We don't do that too often, but typically when we're in that environment that we've gotten oversold and then we bounce off the oversold zone, we typically do see a nice bounce. I mean, here we had 18K as the price pumped all the way up to 23K right there, little in like a 2-week period. Here we bounced off the oversold zone, and that was the beginning of the bull market. Here when we bounced off the oversold zone, that was the COVID lows, rapid recovery there. Here we got oversold, bounced off the oversold zone, that was the beginning of the bull market. So very mid-term and long-term positive prospects from this. Maybe even short-term, depending on what we do. I'm more thinking that we do something like this, where we have a prolonged area of consolidation. With a sudden shift down, people will expect that it goes lower, but it won't go lower. We'll probably bounce there. That'll be our end of our bear market, and that'll be, I'm thinking, sometime in August that we find that low. I don't really have anything else that I want to say. MACD has bullish divergence, sure. I think, maybe we come up a little bit, but then we probably do form more bullish divergence. We probably have another drop to go at some point here. But overall, you've got some hope for the long term. Stochastics are still bearish, so we're not in any kind of environment where I'm expecting that we do anything like this anytime soon, but a little bit of upside. It'll probably come over the coming weeks. To summarize it all, I'll make it really quick in case any of it's confusing. We'll probably go up. We'll see a lower high than what we saw here. And then we'll come down. We'll see a lower low than what we saw here. Maybe a higher low, maybe a tit for tat low, maybe even a lower low, but something in this area of a low. And then we likely come back up and we will get above this point where we rejected before. I don't know if we get above these highs. I definitely don't believe that we'll get above these highs, but we'll probably find resistance somewhere in this area and then continue to come down. And then maybe in May or June, that's whenever we will form our high, which I don't believe will exceed 80K. And then from there, we will start to break out to the downside. And maybe late June or July, that will be when we formally break out of this overall range to the downside, going into the final phase of our bear market, which will finish, I think, in August. But sometime July, August, September, that's really the expectation for the end of the bear market. And I don't know if we get below 50K, but I do believe that we'll get below this low at some point. Anybody who's telling you, once we get below this low, that's when you should buy, I think that that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I get that state of thought. But hear this. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor. This, for the long term, is a prime area to buy. I would heavily advocate anybody who's looking to buy Bitcoin and they're not looking to sell for 5+ years, it's a no-brainer to buy at these levels. Like, if that's you, if you're thinking, like, I don't know, if you've come across a lot of money, if you've come across any money you've been saving and you're like, I just don't know, is it a good time or a bad time to buy? If you buy at these prices, you're going to feel good about it. You're going to feel really good about it. You're going to get better sleep, and that's how you know it's the right decision. Now, even if we move lower, it's still the right decision. What's the wrong decision is buying here and then selling lower. But the if is the big thing. We don't know if it's going to go lower. I've been wrong before. I could be wrong again. And with that, I would heavily, heavily advocate to my best of friends, my closest of family members, to start accumulating Bitcoin here. Absolutely, I would. And I do, and I have been. This is the time to buy. Make no mistake. The people who buy in this range, even the tip top, as long as they hold for 5 years, you're a genius. You're like Warren Buffett, but on steroids. Hit that like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.